everybody, John Wood here. Thanks for stopping by J Wood Fly Fishing. And today I want to tie up for you a foam dragonfly. Now this is a bass fly. You can see by the size of the hook. This is a number 6 TMCO 8089 hook. It's a bass popper hook is what it's designed for. It's fairly lightweight, but it is super strong and ultra sharp. And it's a great hook for a fly like this that you want to sit high on top of the water. The reason I tie these things up is because here in the south, during the summer, when the dragonflies start to hatch and they're buzzing around the surface of the lake, the bass just get so focused in on these things that basically anything that is the color of these dragonflies, and they'll show up in a dark red, black, green, purple, and blue, you'll just see that these bass get extremely aggressive feeding on these dragonflies. They must taste like candy because they just really get after them. Anyway, so I want to show you how to do this, and first, before we get started, I want to explain what I'm using for the body on this thing, and it's a pair of cutouts, and this is just 2mm foam cutouts, and they were cut with a cutter that I had made by River Road Creations of Stephenville, Montana, and it's 2 1/4 inches in length, and at the fat part it's about 5/8 of an inch wide, and then back here, you're at the very tip, it's about 3/16 of an inch, and so you can see the shape of that. And if you want to buy a cutter, I think it's 20 bucks for the cutter, and it lasts forever. If you would not like to buy a cutter, I can sell these. If you would like some, just contact me at jwood@jwoodflyfish.com, and I can hook you up. You can use the ones that I send you as a pattern if you want to tie more, and I use this for a lot of things. This is my trespasser cutout. It's if you look on my channel, I've got a tying video for how to tie that trespasser. But let's get started on this dragonfly. Again, I said it's very simple. Now, first thing I do is I mark my foam with a mark at 1 inch. And then for my pin, this is a sharpened tube ply insert. I come back here and marked it at 7/8 of an inch because I want my foam hanging off the end, protecting my fingers when I'm working. And then I put 5 marks on there, just dividing it up into 5 equal sections, which will give me the segmentation. So I'm going to start by lining up that mark with the mark to the left on my pin. And then I'm not going to start the thread on the pin because it makes it difficult to get the body off the pin at the end, and sometimes they tear. Now the other thing we want to watch is not over tightening the foam right from the beginning. If I was to put that on there and just really crank down on it, what will happen is the thread will cut that foam. It'll just slice right through it. And you don't need these to be ultra tight, you just need them to be snug. So you just fold that foam around there, wrap the thread around there, and get tighter and tighter as you go with it. And that will give you your segmentation. Now I'm going to pinch my fingers right where that next mark is. I'm going to pinch that foam around there, and again, start without getting too tight on the first wrap because we don't want to cut it. You want it to fold all the way around that pin in a circle so that your edges are not being cut by the thread. And in this case, this is a 6/0 uni thread in purple. I'm going to just repeat this process on every one of these marks, making sure it's folded so I'm not cutting the edges. And it's going to try to rotate around that pin. That's okay. Don't worry about that. Just put it back into position and go on to your next segment. And we get to the end. I want this last one to be where I've got just a little over 1/8 of an inch length on the tail. And that's going to separate whenever we put the other piece on here, but we're going to glue that together in just a minute after we take it off of the pin, because you don't want to glue it to the pin. Now I'm going to position that piece of foam to where it's just ever so slightly further to my right, your left in this video, than the bottom piece. And then repeat that process going back the other way. And again, you still want to make sure that you're folding that foam before you start to wrap your thread. Now to get to the next segmentation, I'm coming over the top, keeping my thread in that groove, and then crossing over on top, putting it into the next groove, and then making one wrap, fold the foam, make my segmentation, and go to the next segment. And just repeat this till you get back to the starting point. Again, you don't need a lot of wraps or a lot of tension. That foam expanding back out is going to keep everything in place. And believe it or not, these are extremely durable flies. I've caught up to 30 fish on one of these before it came apart enough that I had to replace it. And I probably still could have kept fishing it, but it just didn't look very good because the foam was shredded from the crusher teeth on the bass. And I just wanted to have a prettier fly to present to them. So I tie these up in groups, and when I do, I tie the extended bodies for the entire group and then go on to tying the fly, which is what I'm going to do with this video. I'm just doing one, but I'm going to have to move everything so I can get my camera repositioned. So once I get the segmentations done, I just whip finish that by hand and then pinch it right here where we started and pull it off the pin, and there you have it. Then I take just a little bit of this Loctite liquid super glue. It works really good with this foam. I get this foam from a place called the Hopper Store, and I believe it's hopperfishing.com. I'll put that on the screen once I have that verified. I've just got the tiniest little bit of super glue right there. And then to make sure that I don't glue my fingers to the fly, I'm going to use a piece of paper towel and just pinch it together, hold it for a couple of seconds, and there you go. There you have your extended body, and this is what we're going to use for the thorax and to attach it to the hook. So let me reposition the camera and we'll get started on the next segment. Alrighty then, I've got everything repositioned, and now that we've seen how to tie this extended body, which forms the thorax and the abdomen on these dragonflies, I want to show you how to put the rest of it together. Now we're going to start with a Timco 8089 hook, and this is a size 6. This is a super sharp hook, and it's got that micro barb on it, so it penetrates really well. And it'll get through those bony sections on a bass's jaw easier than a hook with a big barb on it. Now what I want to do is I'm going to position it to where the hook comes out right here on that foam. And just fold the top piece back and put this hook point right back in there, and then push it straight through, and you can see where that came out. I'm just going to thread it up on the hook and get the hook in the vise. Alright, get that cinched in there really good. Now I'm going to start my thread, and you can see I've got that on there sideways because I don't want it getting in the way of my thread work here. So we're going to start right behind the eye of the hook, pop or cut that tag loose, and come all the way back to right where the point of the hook is. I want that thread parallel with the point of the hook. That's going to position the body exactly where I want it. Now I'm going to go back and forth a few times on the hook shank with this thread because I'm building kind of a rough, gnarly body. That's going to help everything stay on there. Now for just a little bit of bulk underneath and to give this thick foam something to grab onto, I am going to use another piece of foam. Now I cut this out with a Chernobyl tapered body cutter, the small one, but you can just cut a 1/4 inch wide piece of 2mm foam. And I'm cutting this so that it's the same length from where the thread base is to right behind the eye of the hook. Now, with the point lined up right behind the eye of the hook, I am going to start it right there. And then I'm going to put just a little very light bead of a super glue right on that thread. And then I'm just going to take this and press it down in place. I'm going to hold that for a few seconds. Now resist the urge to squeeze that because you're going to end up gluing your fingers to the hook with that super glue. Just make sure you let it set a little bit, and then we can give it a little squeeze around the hook shank. Again, this is just to add a little bit more bulk so that this wider foam has something to grab onto on this thin shank hook. There we go. Now I'm bringing my thread right back to where the hook point is, and then I'm going to move it forward to about the halfway point, maybe a little bit less. Let me get that where I want it. If you want, when you're getting started, you can use something to measure where you're at, but this is not really critical, the positioning on this. Now, to get started attaching that, we're going to flip this over. Now, one more little bead of super glue on top of that foam where it wrapped around that shank back there. Not a whole lot, and don't go past where your thread is because we need to flip that other piece down later on. I'm just going to pull that up and kind of press it against that foam that's tied on there, and fold it around there, and again just hold it for a few seconds. We've got enough foam here on this one that we don't have to worry about gluing our fingers to it, but you just want to make sure you don't put too much super glue on that foam or you still couldn't glue yourself to it. Now with my normal bobbin hand, I am going to hold that, and on the back side I'm using my thumbnail to line up that thread with where it was hanging, and I'm going to bring it straight on around, and as it comes around I'm going to pull it, and I'm pulling it down so that I'm not cutting through the side of that foam. There we go, and then just give it some wraps. Now I can flip this back over. Let me show you real quick what we've got. Now that's what we've got on the inside. Now if you want, you can add just a little super glue up here on top. And again, you want to be real careful not to get too carried away with it. You just want a tiny little bit, just dampen the surface. And I'm using foam that I get from the Hopper store. I believe their website is hopperfishing.com. And I like this foam. It's a good density, it's a good price, and the colors are very consistent. I've got that glue on there. I'm just going to press that down and place again. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to fold it, and then where that thread is hanging, I'm going to use my thumbnail on my side as a guide and just bring the thread around, and as I get it wrapped, I can go ahead and cinch it up and then give it about 3 or 4 wraps. Now, for the wings, I'm going to use these Crazy Legs clear salt and pepper. I'm going to show you how I cut these things off. I'm going to get one of these sections. I've got 2 here that came out of the bag. Let me separate them. Alright, so you see on either end the cut legs are bound. I am going to take my scissors and I want to get 3 at a time. I'm going to get 2 sets of legs, 3 each, and that's going to be our wings. And I'm going to leave the ends attached because it's going to make it a lot easier to handle while finishing up the fly. And I'll show you what I've got right here. There we go. We've got 2 sets of 3 legs each, and they are attached on either end. I'm going to take one where my thread is hanging, loop it around the bobbin and the thread, bring it up here, even the ends, and then pull on them lightly, and that'll even them up on the thread, and then just slide that around to the back side of the fly. And then when you put a little tension on the fly, it's going to suck them down into that crease real well. And then I'm just going to make one more wrap right there. Now you can see where they're at. They're on the top piece of foam, but towards the bottom edge of it. And you can move them around a little bit at this point, but once we get the other ones cinched on there, they will be locked in place. Now, to put the other ones on there, I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but keep it on the other side of the fly. Even those up, put a little tension on them, pull them up the side. Now I'm going to pull my bobbin back towards me once I get those legs positioned where I want them. That'll lock them down. I'll take the rear wing, pull it back and drop it over the hook, get it out of the way, and then just kind of work my way around the front wing, keeping my thread in the same groove that it's been in. Now I've got 3 or 4 wraps, and you can see I'm putting a lot of tension on there, bending that hook. So those are nice and snug. Now I'm just going to pull everything back, make one more wrap. Then I'm going to pull the top piece of foam back, make one more wrap, and this is going to keep my thread from pulling this piece of foam around whenever I jump it forward. And as I come back around, pull my thread up. Now I'm going to pull that back and then just kind of work this foam forward, or the thread forward over the foam, to where I'm about 1 hook eye length behind the eye of the hook. When I say 1 hook eye length, what I mean is the distance from the very front of the eye to the very back of the eye, and then I'm going to jump back about that width and let my thread hang there. Now to fold this so I get the eyes formed, I'm going to flip that over. And here we go again with the super glue. This is the most super glue laden fly that I tie. But like I said in the beginning, it makes it extremely durable. So that's a very small drop right there. Now I'm going to take my bobbin, pull that forward, not letting it go down onto the thread, and then I'll take my bobbin and push that back. That keeps me from gluing my finger to the hook, and kind of line that up to where it's a bit, you can see at this point about half of the eye of the hook beyond the fold. Even them up the sides, and then just press down on that, and that'll lock that in place. That's a little bit uneven, but it's still good. So I'm going to take this, and again, I'm going to use that same technique where I pinch the foam with my thumbnail on the back side, holds everything in place, and then cinch that baby down. And if I can get that wing out of the way, give that a couple more wraps. Now we're going to flip the vise again, and we're going to do the exact same thing. Now that glue takes a little bit to completely set up, so I can even that back up, which that I had rotated a little bit, so I had a little bit of time to fix it. Now I'm going to do the same thing up here. A drop of super glue, not too much. Use the bodkin to push the foam back. Eyeball it so about half of the hook eye is showing, and I like to have it a little bit longer on the top piece than it is on the bottom, and try to get it as even as possible from side to side. Press it, and in this one those eyes are holding it in place, so I don't have to use my bobbin hand to pinch it. There we go. Bring that around. Now, to whip finish this thing, a lot of my flies I use a whip finisher, but when I'm using foam, I prefer, if possible, to use my fingers, because I can keep just a little more consistent tension on the whip finish as we go through it. Every time I come around, I'm spreading my fingers and putting a lot of tension on that previous round. And then I get about 5 or 6 wraps on there. Cinch that down, and you can cinch it by pulling backwards a little bit, and you'll see it came on around the fly a little bit as it cinched that final wrap. Now go ahead and cut your thread. And the last thing we have to do is trim the wings. And I like the wings to be about the distance of this first segment plus the eyes beyond the back of the body. Just cut them all at once. And there you have it. And that is J. Wood's Simple Dragonfly. It is a high floating, extremely durable dragonfly imitation. It is very imitative. It's not meant to be exact, because like I've said several times here, this when the bass are focused in on this fly, the strikes are instinctive. They see that thing hit the water and they will nail it. They chase these dragonflies around, and I'm thinking they must taste like candy or big ribeye. And because I've seen 7 and 8 pound fish jump 1 to 2 feet out of the water to grab one of these things. And sometimes you'll flop this thing down on the water, and those fish will move 10, 15, even 20 feet to crash it. So tie a few of these up. Go out to your local waters and check out the color of the dragonflies that are there, and select a foam that matches that color. If you want to do a two-tone, you can do that. You could even put an indicator on top if you're going to be making long casts with it, so that you can see it a little bit better. But I guarantee you, you're going to see the strikes. So to fish these, what I do is I find an area where the fish are feeding on dragonflies, and it's usually along weed edges, cattails, because the dragonflies like to light on those cattails, or weeds that come right up to the surface, and the bass will get in there because they've seen them coming in there, and they will attack these things viciously when they hit the water. Now, I wanted to make this fly really simple to tie because of the fact that they're going to be around the weeds. A lot of times you'll hook a good fish, and the first thing he does is dive right down into those weeds. You get tangled up, and sometimes even if you're fishing a 12 or 16 pound tippet, you will have to break it if they get into some cattails or brush or something like that. And again, these are usually fish that are hanging around some kind of brush that they can break you off in. So practice these up, tie a few up, and get them out there on the water when you see those dragonflies on the surface. It is very valuable to have these things in your box, because there will be times when the fish will focus on these so hard that they will ignore other baits because they're looking for these. Almost like a trout focused on a hatch. They will get ultra focused on them. And I'm going to show you in another video how to tie a dragonfly nymph that I like to use, because they will get just as focused in on those things before the adults start to hatch. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it gave you some good information. Tie a few of these up, have fun with it, and catch some fish. So until next time, peace, love, and fly.